Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Brandy and I am a Spanish kindergarten teacher. I teach in a dual language classroom and we have just had our first week of school. Our first week of school was actually the longest first week of school we've ever had. We started a half day on Tuesday and then did full days Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So normally the first week of school is a day and a half, maybe 2 days and a half, and you're done. You get a little breather, but it was definitely different. I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about week 2, but I kind of want to be very thorough and explain to you what that looks like. If you did not see my first video about Camp Kindergarten and what we do the first week of school, go ahead and go back and watch that one to kind of get like the whole picture. But just to recap, our students come to school from 8:55 to 3:55. They have 1 hour for specials and almost an hour for lunch and 2 recesses. So the rest of that time, my English partner and I split our students equally. So we have 43 students. I roughly get them for 3 to 3.5 hours per day. And I teach all content areas plus all language objectives. In the English classroom, they teach reading, writing, phonics. So we're going to talk briefly about what I do week 2 of school in the dual language classroom, some activities that we do, and kind of like the structure of our day and the structure of the lessons. Okay. At this point, 4 or 5 days into school, we are done with Camp Kindergarten. If you don't know what Camp Kindergarten is, again, go back and watch another video and it'll explain it a little bit better for you. But essentially, Camp Kindergarten is where all of the kindergarteners come into the building. They're not assigned to a specific teacher, and we kind of share responsibilities throughout the week and get to know all of the students. Now, we have 5 sections, but only 2 of those sections are part of the dual language program. So my partner and I only had 43 kids. Out of the 43, we split them 23-20. And when it came to the end of Camp Kindergarten, we ended up switching 3 kids, from my group and 3 kids from her group. And then we have our complete groups. Now, we do have these 2 groupings of children, but it's really just to kind of help us split up responsibilities. And throughout the day, when we have different activities like specials, not all 43 of our kids are going to the same place. But essentially, I do get all 43 of those kids every single day to teach. Okay. So now that we've decided what their classrooms are going to be like, right now we're doing morning work as they come into the classroom. Because they're not fully independent and in their routine yet, having them at the table all in one place makes it easier for me, the teacher, to take attendance, get lunch count, help them turn in folders, help students who are still a little teary-eyed at the beginning of the school year coming into the classroom. So at this point, week 2, we're doing a coloring sheet with communal supplies at our tables, and that takes roughly 10 to 15 minutes. And we move on to calendar and saludos. Now, we use whole brain teaching in the kindergarten classroom. So one of the whole brain teaching strategies is to teach students call and response and how to give a daily greeting. So that looks like me greeting each of my students and then greeting me back. So over the last 4 days, I was able to teach them 2 choices for greetings. They can either greet me with buenos dias, buenas tardes, or hola. Simple. Okay, very simple. The first couple of days, I had some friends who would kind of just wave to let me know that they heard me and they were responding, but they weren't ready to start using the Spanish language, and that's completely okay. That is our saludos, our greeting, our call and response. And then all of our calendar aspects of the day are in Spanish. We talk about meses del año, días de la semana, números de los días. Okay, we talk about the numbers, the days of the week, and the months. We do all of this in Spanish. So they're already counting in Spanish. And this week we counted to 16 because that's when our week ended. So that's kind of what that looks like as far as calendar. Now, in the English room, they do SEL, they do social and emotional learning. So their morning meeting looks a little bit different, but it doesn't include a calendar time. They only get calendar in the Spanish classroom. Okay, then shortly after that, we move into our math time. The first week of school, we were just having math talks and playing with math manipulatives and working with numbers 1 to 5 and just kind of counting and reading stories and singing songs with numbers 1 to 5, just to kind of open their brains a little bit to the idea of learning math in Spanish. Now, again, Spanish classroom is the only classroom that teaches math. They do not get math in the English classroom. In the older grades, 1 through 5, in the English classroom, they get fluency and vocabulary review of math, but in the kindergarten class, all of math is taught in Spanish. We use the Eureka Math curriculum, and we have not started content and curriculum at this point. That's what we're going to be doing here in week 2. Okay, I'm going to try my first 2 lessons of Eureka Math in Spanish and kind of feel my kids out. If I see a little bit of resistance, we might pull back and do a couple of English lessons. We might vamp it up and offer a little bit more hands-on, a little bit more play during that time, more stories, more songs. Week 2 is kind of where I'm just feeling it out and letting the kids know what our new routine looks like. So math time looks like starting off with fluency, going into a whole group teach, okay, then a model lesson, and then independent work. Okay, now independent work, week 2, my kids are with clipboards and pencils at the carpet spots. I don't let them start working independently at the tables until maybe week 3 or 4, depending on what kind of group of students I have. But week 1, fluency, a whole group teach, modeled teach, and then independent work is at the carpet with a clipboard so that they're very close to me. I can answer questions. It's very guided, especially because it's in another language. Lots of visuals, especially because they're learning a second language. Okay. After math time, we have math groups, which is where I'll work with students who are not able to keep up with the tier 1 learning. So this week we won't officially start math groups, but we still have that time in our day. It's 15 minutes where I have manipulatives set out on each of the tables in our classroom, manipulatives that we will be using specifically for math. So like linking, chains, the little counting math cubes, a couple of subitizing activities, a couple rolling dice activities, and finding numbers. So some of them are kind of games and some of them are just specifically playing with the manipulatives. So during this time, I'm walking around to the tables, showing students how to use those tools and those materials appropriately, and just asking questions and prompting them just to kind of pick their brains a little bit. Okay, going into week 3 and 4, we'll start setting up math groups and we'll have rotations where they spend a few minutes at my table getting small group instruction. So after that, we move into kind of like our phonics time. We use Estrellita and Benchmark for our phonics. Phonics right now looks like going over the Spanish alphabet names. This week we'll be introducing their sounds and reading books that use the Spanish alphabet. So there are a multitude of books that are ABC books. A is for something, B is for something. Just getting their heads wrapped again around that idea of learning a new language, learning the letter names, learning the letter sounds in a new language. Very low key, lots of songs, lots of gestures, lots of photos. So we kind of keep phonics to about 10-15 minutes at this time and don't go too much in depth, mostly because I don't want to intimidate them or scare them or make them feel like it's too hard or difficult for them. Okay. Reading and social studies. Week 2, we are moving into a unit about who am I. Okay. Now we use TCI for social studies, which is offered in English and in Spanish. So we're doing a unit on ¿Quién soy yo? Who am I? And again, we do this in English and Spanish, kind of a mix. Our objectives are written in Spanish, our key vocabulary, our Spanish vocab words. But again, our discussions can kind of be a mix of that new vocabulary with English vocabulary that they're familiar. Okay, the first 2 words that we're teaching are igual y diferente, which is the same 2 vocabularies for math, unit 1. So they're going to hear igual, casi igual, and diferente in math and social studies. So hopefully that exposure multiple times throughout the day will help them remember those key vocabulary words. We talk a little bit about some comparisons in the social studies unit about what makes us different or the same as others, such as maybe the length of our hair or sports that we like to play, if you're a boy or a girl, if you use glasses or don't, if you have a pet at home. Just another way to introduce some new vocabulary in kind of a fun, non-intimidating way. So that's what social studies and reading looks like at this point. Now, this is one of those units where we're integrating reading and social studies because we don't specifically have a time in our day every single day to teach science and social studies. So this is one of those instances where we have a little bit of extra time, a little bit of extra freedom because it is the beginning of the school year and content instruction hasn't really officially began. So we can sneak in either a science or social studies unit. Okay, so that's what we're doing here. We're sneaking in that social studies unit. Okay, writing. Week 1, Camp Kindergarten. Handwriting looked like seeing if they can write their names on their own. No pressure. I left a spot on each of their coloring sheets to put their name up at the top, and if they could, I let them. If they couldn't, I prompted, do you know the first letter in your name? And if they could do that, that was perfect. That was enough. Okay. So week 2, of course, I will be going in. Now I can see which students are able to write their name on their own. Week 2, they have name tags put on their desk. Week 1, there's no name tags out, unfortunately, because of Camp Kindergarten. We have multiple kids coming through our classrooms. Nothing's really labeled because we don't really know which kids belong to us and where they sit. So there aren't name tags out. So week 2, they have name tags on their desk that they can refer to. At the end of week 2, if I still see that even with the name tag there, I will start offering assistance, offering, like the bubble handwritten lines, the handwriting tracing lines for their names for those kids who need extra support. But writing, very simple. Can you write your name? Okay. Week 1, also during Camp Kindergarten, we go into just talking about the 3 types of lines: straight lines, slanted lines, and circles. Okay. So we did that during Camp Kindergarten. Week 3, we're going to be focusing on directed drawing. So using those 3 types of lines to draw common objects, and we're tying this into a coloring project, learning color words along with using these types of lines to make pictures. Okay, and all of that we're doing in this unit with a book called Libro de los Colores. So this is what it looks like. Each day we do a directed drawing. It says veo una manzana. I teach them how. Another day of the week, veo una calabaza. I teach them how to color the calabaza. The empty handwriting line is for them to write the name of the color in Spanish. So los libros de colores, or el libro de los colores, it includes 10 different colors, and then at the end of the booklet, it includes the instructions for the directed drawing. Okay, so in week 1, again, we teach the straight lines, the slanted lines, and circles, and we use those different forms, letter formations, types of lines, to do these directed drawings. And then I put it all together for them in a book and staple it and go home. So that's what writing looks like the first week of school. There are 10 drawings, so we normally do this for 2 weeks. Not only does it help them learn the Spanish color words, but it's reinforcing those lines, forming those lines, and also just seeing independently, can they see a color word? Can they see a word and put it on a line? Okay, so do they have transfer ability? So that's kind of what writing looks like for us, weeks 2 and 3 of school. So kind of tracking, can they make those basic types of lines? And then from there, writing looks different throughout the rest of the year. But that's what it looks like for the second and third week of school. Okay. Also within our school day, I know all of that seems like a lot to fit into a half day. I also have to fit in purposeful play. Okay, so week 1 of school, purposeful play included things that I knew 100% that they were already going to know how to do. Okay, they will know how to build with blocks. They will know how to play in a kitchen. They will know how to use Play-Doh. And then they'll know how to use just like common, maybe like stem bin-like materials. And they'll know how to do that kind of with very little assistance. So what I do is I use Google Slides to kind of guide my instruction through the day. So I create a Google slide for them of pictures of what they are allowed to do during that purposeful playtime. And I keep it very basic. Let me show you an example. Okay, so this is kind of what my slide looks like. There's a 25-minute timer. I have my cleanup slide my cleanup song on the same slide, so I don't have to go find it. Okay, and then there's a picture of Play-Doh, and it tells them they can grab one Play-Doh at a time. And then I have this area of my classroom with all of this built-in shelving. In each of these bins, there's a different STEM activity. And if you guys want to see this up close or what's inside each of the bins, I can do a video just for that. Okay. Now, nothing complicated in here, but again, I can show you another video when I'm in my classroom of what that looks like. They are allowed to grab one bin and one person is allowed to play per bin. This gives the opportunity for my kids who really like to play by themselves or are a little bit more shy or not ready to make friends to have some alone time if they would like to. Okay, and then we have our block area with some tall blocks. The only rule in the block center is that there can only be 2 people and they can't build towers larger than their head. We've had so many instances in the years past where they've built it so tall and then it falls over and the blocks knock them in the head and it's a whole thing. So that's just a rule in my classroom. And then we have this kitchen area here and my dollhouse is right here. The dollhouse later on will be a separate center, but right now the dollhouse is in the kitchen and there's allowed to be 2 people in there at a time. There's plenty of things between the Play-Doh and the task bins. They've got plenty to do during this time and they've got 25 minutes. So they're allowed to play the whole time. They get to listen to the cleanup song 2 times at this point, and then after we clean up, we get ready and we switch rooms. So I get a new group of students, and the students that I had go to their English classroom. So that's just kind of an idea of kind of how I run things my second week of school. If you have more questions or want to see anything in depth, go ahead and put it into the comments. As much as I wanted to record this week in my classroom, when I got there in the mornings, I'm getting there right at contract times, so I'm not recording. And 4:15 is the end of our contract day. And this week it's been 4:15 and we still have kids. So the dismissal process is not going as smooth as we had hoped at this point. But needless to say, I leave at my contract time. So for me, it's important to leave at that time. Number one, because one of my sons is at school with me. He's ready to go home. And at that point, my older high school children have been at home for 2 hours. And so I really wanted to get home and have family time with them. So, yeah, but if there's anything specifically that you want to see or you're really interested, please let me know so I can do a quick recording and add it into one of these vlogs for you. The Los Colores book is in my TPT store, so you can pick that up if you're interested in it for teaching, lines, directed drawings, colors, simple shapes, those types of things. It's very good. If you're interested in the Google Slides that I use, I would be happy to invite you to my Google Drive so that you have access to all of those. I know putting those together takes a lot of work. That's why I feel like I have it easier this year because I have the slides made from last year. The only difference is now we have one new curriculum and all of our time allotments have changed. So there have been some adjustments that I've had to go and open up the slideshow, a day or two before just to make sure that I switched the slides to go in the appropriate timing for me and add in a couple of extra things. Like this year to Camp Kindergarten, I added in a unit about lunchtime and bringing lunch for home and people's favorite foods because we have such a variety, kind of just a very diverse school. And last year, that was a big issue, was we had kids who were picking on other kiddos because of their lunch choices. So I chose to add that into Camp Kindergarten this year. I'm sure there'll be little things that I add in along the way to accommodate the needs of these students specifically. So if you're interested in resources or help on how to run your dual language classroom, or just advice from a seasoned teacher, go ahead and hit that follow button and we'll see you in the next one for what I do for back to school night.